When Pokemon Gold and Silver first released in the year 2000, it was actually a really big deal that you could take Pokemon from Red, Blue, and Yellow and transfer them between the two games at will. That was a huge deal. Trading Pokemon from one game to another was a huge selling point of the franchise. It was part of the reason why the franchise was so successful, because there were multiple versions of the same game and Pokemon exclusive to each version. When Gold and Silver released, there were a lot of Pokemon that you simply could not get in these games, and you had to send up from Red, Blue, and Yellow in order to get a complete Pokédex. And it was a great disappointment to many Pokemon players that when Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire released in 2003, there was no way to send Pokemon from previous games up to the newer games. There's a lot of actual legitimate reasons why that wasn't possible. Hardware differences, coding differences between the games. I actually don't blame Game Freak at all for not being able to figure this out. It was a big chore, and that's part of the reason why we haven't had even a fan version of this that's consistent for over 20 years now. And it's not like Game Freak completely gave up on doing cross-generation trading either. You have the ability right now to take Pokemon from this copy of Pokemon Ruby and send them all the way up to the present day in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I'm sure that there's going to be new ways of doing it. Here, look, when I participated in Safari Week in 2022, I got a bunch of shiny Pokemon in Gen 3, including this Blossom that I have brought up to my living shiny dex in Pokemon X and Y. Look at all these shinies. See, look, it came all the way from the Hoenn region to reach the Kalos region. There's easy ways of sending Pokemon up from previous games up to this one, and it's always been a big bother to a lot of trainers that they never figured out a way of doing it between Generation 2 and 3. Until now. This week, a homebrew developer by the name of Gears of Progress publicly released Poke Transporter GB. And I, for the very first time, am going to be able to send a Pokemon from this copy of Silver to this copy of Fire Red. I chose these two games specifically for a very good reason. These are the games that I'm trying to get a living Pokédex in. Pokemon Silver is my favorite Pokemon game ever. It's my favorite video game ever, and as you can see right now, I own 152 Pokemon, and I should be able to get a living Pokédex just fine between all of my different copies of the game. Silver is not the issue here. The issue is actually Fire Red version. Generation 3 is notorious for being a very hard generation to finish your Pokédex. There's a lot of Pokemon that you can only get through some really stupid means. As you can see here, I actually own 150 Pokemon from Kanto. I have everything except for Mew, but nationally I only own 213. I am missing over 150 Pokemon, and I could play the Hoenn games and transfer most of those over, but there's a handful of Johto Pokemon that are just going to be really, really hard to get, including the starters, and that is what I've decided I am going to try and transfer over today. The third thing you need is a copy of Poke Transporter GB, and for that, I have procured this. This is the cheapest flashcard I could find that would allow for me to load the ROM and be able to make this happen. This is an Easy Flash Omega. If the IRS is watching this, I bought this solely for the purposes of this video, and that is why it is listed on my tax returns. To make this happen, it's actually very simple. You just need a copy of Generation 1 or 2 and a copy of Generation 3. It doesn't matter which game it is. Any Generation 1 and any Generation 2 game will work with any Generation 3 game. The only other things you need are a copy of GB Transporter, which you can load onto a flash core, or you can use Game Boy Player or Wii Homebrew or something like that. And you need 2 Game Boys and a Game Boy Color Link cable. As of the time I'm making this video, they made it clear that only a Color Link cable will work, not an Advanced Link cable. Maybe that'll change in the future. Hopefully that'll change in the future. We're going to load Pokemon Silver into this Game Boy Advance, and we are going to load the flash cart into this Game Boy Advance. Wow, can you tell which one is the Game Boy Advance SP101? There we go, Poke Transporter GB version 1.0.2. I believe that this restores functionality of Pokemon Gold. Not an issue for me, but, well, you never know. Let's go ahead and load that up. Get to the correct section of Pokemon Silver. Okay, Poke Transporter GB just loaded up. Let's get Silver figured out here real quick. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to load all the Pokemon that you want to send over to Generation 3 into a single box. This is a one-way trip, just like moving anything from Generation 3 onward. You're going to want to select the box that you're going to want to send the entire contents of. In my case, I have a single Pokemon in box 7, so I'm going to select box 7 and make that one the box that I have selected in Pokemon Silver. And then, just like if I were making a trade, I'm going to go over to the appropriate trade station. Poke Transporter GB, let's press the start button. Let's go ahead and do that. Pokemon save file was not loaded successfully. Please remove and reinsert the game pack, then press the A button. I don't know how they pull off this magic, but what you need to do is literally pull out the flash cartridge. As you can see, it's still loaded perfectly fine with no game in there. I don't know how they do this wizard's magic. Gonna plop in my copy of Pokemon Fire Red, just like that, and press the A button. And voila, it actually recognized that it's Fire Red because the background turned red. Hello, Professor Fennel, how are you doing on this fine day? This historic day where I'm going to move a Pokemon from Gen 2 to Gen 3 with real hardware, no modifications to the ROM, nothing. All I have is a flash cart with a homebrew ROM on it. My dream is to collect save files of various trainers, but you haven't had any breakthroughs yet. Well, lucky for you, I own every single Pokemon game ever. Look at this, I even own Pokemon Emerald and Pokemon Crystal complete in box. I'm practically a millionaire at this point, I think. There's just over 250 Pokemon I want to catalog in my Dream Pokédex, or my Dream Dex for short. Yeah, can you believe that? I believe this will actually work for Mew and Celebi as well. That's crazy. Save data backups are recommended. Don't worry, I have backed up both of these save files to my computer before this. In fact, this copy of Pokemon Silver actually lost its save a few years ago due to a dry battery, and I've been making sure to back up all of my Pokemon games on Game Boy and Game Boy Advance consistently and periodically ever since then, just to make sure that never happens again. That was a sad day for me when that happened. Let's go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and transfer the Pokemon. Before we begin, you need to ask me a few questions. So as of the time I'm recording this video, English is the only language that is supported. However, I am positive that all the others will be supported in the future, which is great because I got a German copy of Pokemon Blue I want to rescue some Pokemon from someday. We are going to be transferring from Pokemon Silver, right there. Also, huge shout out to whoever worked on the graphics and the UI and all of this. This looks like it's actually a game that Game Freak themselves would have put out back in the day. Okay, press A on this device and then talk to the Cable Club attendant. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Look at that, we actually have a graphic of Pokemon Silver connecting straight to Pokemon Fire Red. Link was successful, waiting for trade. We do have to walk up and initiate the trade just like ye olden days. Let's do this! So right now what's going on in the background is that the flash cartridge is writing some arbitrary code execution in order to force a custom program onto Pokemon Silver, extract the data from it, plop it into Pokemon Fire Red, and at the same time write a custom program onto Pokemon Fire Red as well. Look at that, transferring, please wait, that's something that never was programmed in Pokemon Silver in the first place. What a time to be alive! Oh, it looks like it's good. Let's take a look at the Pokemon that'll be transferred. Once a Pokemon is transferred, it cannot be returned. Yes, just like nowadays. It's a one-way trip. All right, we even got this little sprite here. So yeah, as you can see, we have a Cyndaquil. I actually nicknamed it Transport. It's level 5. I hatched the egg solely for this experiment. It moves the entire box, like I said, so make sure everything's in there that you want to send and nothing else. Let's go ahead and confirm. Writing some more arbitrary code. There we go. This game just reset. Fantastic, everything went perfectly. Looks like there's at least one new Pokemon here that isn't in your Dream Dex. I'll give them something extra sweet as a reward for you both. Oh, is it going to hold an item? I didn't know that was going to happen. Send these Pokemon to one of my friends so you can pick them up. They live just south of the Pokemon Center on 7 Island, which is exactly why I saved there. I actually don't know what the event is in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, but I'm sure that it's something. All right, and just like that, we're done. So if I were to load up Pokemon Silver here real quick, looks like everything's saved just fine. So if I were to go to the PC here, box 7 is still selected, so if I were to withdraw a Pokemon, nothing there. Cyndaquil is gone from that game forever. Let's go ahead and remove the link cable here. I believe all I need to do now is stop and restart the Game Boy. Remember, Fire Red is in there. I took out the flash cartridge a long time ago, which is crazy to think about. My Pokédex is at 198. I feel like that might be one more than it was at. Or maybe not. Maybe we need to actually go through with this event. Anyway, so this is the house. Anyone who's played this game probably knows where this is going. Here we go. Look, here, let me crank up the volume. A completely unmodified cartridge. The only thing that happened is that we plopped in the Game Boy transporter beforehand. Look at this. You guys ever wonder what's behind those boxes? Well, now you know. Behind the boxes is a PC for Looker to talk to Fennel. Skull's Pokemon were sent to the PC. Let's go! If I were to go to my save now, look, it went up to $1.99. That's perfect. It actually worked. Let's go ahead and check out our Cyndaquil. Move Pokemon. Ah, there it is. And he's holding a rare candy. Let's go. There it is. Timid nature met in a fateful encounter. Holy cow! Yes! Oh, that is so cool! Oh, I'm giddy as a schoolboy right now. Well, I think it's safe to say I'm going to be using this feature quite a bit to complete my Fire Red Pokédex. Although I suppose the question could then be asked, am I completing my Pokédex legitimately if I am relying on homebrew to transfer stuff up from Generation 2 to Generation 3? To which I say, I don't know, but it's sure fun. I really have to hand it to Gears of Progress, the person who designed this, because holy cow, this is so good. It was so intuitive. It was perfect. I had no issues whatsoever. This video took me all of 15 minutes to film, and now I have successfully sent a Pokemon from Generation 2 to Generation 3, and I'm sure that it is the first of many. If you guys want to do this yourself, I cannot recommend it enough. This was so fun, and it's such a good tool, and I'm positive that this will become a staple of retro Pokemon gaming in the years to come. I am so happy that this exists right now. And this just means that my goal of completing the Pokédex in Generation 3 is now that much easier, and it gives me an even greater incentive of going back and playing more Generation 2, my favorite generation of Pokemon of all time. That brings this video to an end. All the information is in the description. Go check it out. Not sponsored, I just saw this and had to make a video as soon as I could. Thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for more.